Thomas. Welcome to the Progressive Soapbox. So guys, I want you to see something. Cenk Uygur attacked Michael Tracy. Now Michael Tracy is one of his own reporters, and he's made this argument about him walking around with blinders on because he wasn't towing the line with the Russia jargon. Let's take a look. I hope you can hear this okay.
We were saying that the guys who have said all along that there's no Russia thing and it's hyperventilating, some who work here, right? You're 100% wrong, and you're going to be proven wrong. And so, sad day for you. I don't even want to discuss it anymore.
And there's some of what I think it's.
You're going to be wrong. You're proven wrong. I don't want to even discuss it anymore. It is beyond reproach that Russia has something to do with Donald Trump.
Fires those people is makes some sense, and it's another reason to hurry. So let's get get beyond it, so that come 2018.
Hate Hillary Clinton, and the Hillary's team hates me because you worked against her. Yeah, I liked another candidate better. Deal with it. You know, sad day for you. And it turns out I was right because you fucking lost the election to this idiot, right? Okay, so, but the people who it's personal, whatever it is, right? There's still. Look, Hillary's gone. She's in the fucking woods. She's in the fucking woods, so she's not going to come out, right? But, the people who hate Hillary so much and that whole thing, they're like, oh, she lost the election. It's her fault. So it's not Comey. It's not Russia. Comey's bullshit. Russia's bullshit. Everything else is bullshit. It is such an obvious logical fallacy. So obvious. I get it. You don't like Hillary Clinton, and you don't like her making excuses. I don't like her making excuses either. She lost the election because of Hillary Clinton. Why are we having this conversation? Who's responsible for Hillary Clinton losing? This is a question? I don't even want to do a poll on it. Hillary Clinton! That's who's responsible. But that doesn't mean that Trump didn't do a deal with Russia. And you calling that...
Alright, so there's a few problems with this conversation. There's at least two. So the first one is pretty basic. Where's your evidence? Where's your evidence? Michael Tracy consistently comes on and says, I understand that they have business dealings, but where's your evidence of corruption? Where's your evidence of collusion? I see no evidence of corruption or collusion. Show me your evidence. Now, beyond not having evidence, the evidence or the piece of evidence they tend to go to in regards to this hacking thing, or this Russia thing, was that, for the most part, the software itself, they tried to say that the organization that did the analysis, well, that organization has been discredited. The analysis that particular organization was doing wasn't coming out correctly. And many agencies around the world said, wait a minute, that doesn't look right to us. That looks a little weird. My point is, what they're using as evidence is not really evidence. Did Trump have business dealings with Russians? Yeah, he probably did. But to put that in context, so did Democrats. You have just as many Democrats that have affiliation and deals with Russia. This idea that they're pointing to Trump and saying that his deals with Russia is somehow different than other people's deals with Russia is insane. It's insane. 24 hours after Hillary Clinton lost that election, in the book Shattered, Hillary Clinton immediately said, look, we need to get this narrative out that Russia hacked us. This was all Russia's fault. I had nothing to do with losing this particular election. All those people who assumed that I was going to lose. Huffington Post had me winning at 98%. Those people weren't wrong. It was Russia. It was a foreign body. Russia came into our election and choked the hell out of America. This is insane. This is absolutely insane. These people say this stuff without any evidence, or without any real evidence making that draw, making that attraction to the two. And even bringing in this whole Comey thing, saying, well, he fired Comey because he wanted to stop the investigation. How do you know that? How do you know that? It's Donald Trump. Would Donald Trump fire Comey if he didn't think Comey was loyal? Yes. Yes, of course he would. I can totally see him asking the question of, can I trust you? And you being sheepish and giving that answer to any degree is, okay, I can't trust you, you're fired. That's as far as that goes. Honestly, I honestly believe that's as far as it goes. I could be wrong, but that's as far as that goes. Now, they're making this case that, yeah, it's Russia and Trump. They were totally colluded. In my early videos, I was pretty clear that, look, I don't think there's anything to this Russia thing, but it's possible. That was my position. I don't think there's anything to it. I think it's bogus. I think they're bringing this stuff up to hide from the fact of what took place in the primaries and to come up with some reason why Hillary Clinton lost to reality show hosts. Now, I don't blame her for trying to find a reason for losing to reality show hosts. I would imagine that burns. But we must understand that that's the story that they put out. Cenk Uygur and the Young Turks are literally pushing the story that Hillary Clinton put out after she lost the election to cover for the fact that she lost the election. Is it possible that Trump had some level of collusion with Russia? Of course it's possible. There's no way to know. But what do we know? We do know that Hillary Clinton put out that line. We don't know that there was any collusion between Trump and Russia. We do know there were probably business ties between the two. But if you're saying there was collusion, that is a big goddamn deal. And you need to actually be able to show that. Not get on your show and give assertions about it. Now, for the second point. Well, there are 3 points. But the second point. I made a video and I was making this point of progressives being very aware of their motivations. Like anybody, be aware of your motivations. Why are you doing the things that you're doing? Sometimes those things seem perfectly natural to do in our particular reality flame, but they're being motivated by something else. Now, we all took this position of, she just lost. And she's trying to come up with some justification of why she lost. So yeah, she's using Russia, Comey, and all this other stuff as progressives. I don't want to hear that shit. You lost. You lost. You just lost. Accept the fact that you lost. Stop bringing all these other people into it. You failed miserably to a reality show host. Now, in making that point, and progressives being very pointed about that, we're being very pointed about that for a reason. We told you that your status quo candidate wasn't going to work. You put up your status quo candidate anyway, cheating our candidate. And you lost. Don't say Russia, don't say Comey, don't say any of this stuff. You lost. You lost on your own merits. You lost because you were a status quo candidate. And as progressives, we're continuously making this point. Status quo doesn't work. You need to go with progressive agenda. So you can understand progressives taking the position of, yeah, this Russia thing is bullshit. I don't want to have anything to do with it. You're lying. All right. Now dig into that narrative a little bit. Is it possible that there was some collusion between Trump and Russia? Yes, it is possible. And progressives, to some degree, needs to understand their motivations, their clear motivations, in order to make the distinction between, okay, maybe there's something there, if ever it comes up. I still don't think there's anything there. Only the point I'm getting at is you do need to be aware of your motivations for doing things, because those things create biases to some degree. Now, that is a different question, however, as to whether anything took place between Trump and Russia. Yes, progressives can have their biases in this regard. But their biases are kind of lived out in reality, in a sense. You have no smoking gun evidence that those two are colluding. You have no evidence for any particular Russian hacking in that sense. You have no evidence that the information was passed to WikiLeaks came from Russia. You are without evidence. You're with assertions. And again, I make the point, yes, you can point to business dealings with Trump and Russia in those senses. But you can point to business dealings between Democrats and Russia also. So I am unclear as what you think you have that is such a slam dunk case for you to undermine your own reporter. The job of the reporter is to literally look at facts and information to come up to certain assertions. I could say XYZ because I've reviewed this. This is the data. Here's the data. This is my position. Now, there's something to be said for looking at the Russia data and saying, well, wait a minute, this data isn't really data. This company is somewhat busted, and Democrats have been dealing with Russia in the same way. Not to mention, Hillary Clinton put this out as just spin, propaganda. As a reporter, I'm looking at this and saying, yeah, I'm not seeing what's here that you guys are seeing. I don't see it. Personally, I don't see it. I don't know what they're talking about. Is there collusion in Washington, corruption in Washington? Yes. Is that corruption rampant throughout the Congress and the federal government, presidency? Yes. Is it they don't like Trump's type of corruption? Is that what's going on? And I'm not saying that Trump had anything to do with, in the sense of Russia with colluding, but I'm saying even under their own story, it's like we're okay with certain types of corruption, but other corruption is a no-no. It's like, come on, dude. Ultimately, the truth of the matter is, Democrats pushed this up because they didn't want to have the conversation about why they lost. Period. Period. Now, I acknowledged that there is somewhat of a bias there of saying, I don't want to hear this shit about something else took place to undermine her election. She just lost. I acknowledge that bias. But even with that bias, it's this thing of, where's your data? Where's your data? If you're going to bash Michael Tracy in this way, and it's not a bashing, he's just saying he's undermining him. But he's undermining him in the capacity of his job, which is of reporting the information. If you're going to undermine him in this way, where's your data? I'm hearing assertions. I'm not hearing, here's a gun, smoking gun evidence that showed Trump colluded with Russia. I don't see that. I don't see that. Cenk Uygur doesn't have that. None of these guys have that. They're making assertions. So that's the second point. The last point. The guy who's saying that people are walking around with blinders is denying the Armenian genocide. Literally. There's a paper. Now, the Armenian genocide took place during World War I, during the Ottoman Empire. Now, this gets very interesting in two accounts. A, the Young Turks' name, what it means, historical reference, and B, the fact that he had denied the Holocaust took place. Now, he's saying Michael Tracy is walking around with blinders on. In, what is this, the Daily Pennsylvanian, Uygur writes this argument essentially saying, look man, I know you guys are saying Armenian genocide, but there's no evidence the Armenian genocide took place. The problem is, there's plenty of evidence that the Armenian genocide took place. Not just plenty of evidence, it is practically extremely clear that the Armenian genocide took place. That clarity only became more clear as time went on. The idea that he's denying this is remarkable. In a second account, he goes beyond denying it into calling himself the Young Turks. The organization that carried out that genocide was called the Young Turks. It's amazing. It's almost like having a group calling yourself the Southern Confederacy and calling yourself a progressive group. My point is, if he's saying Tracy is walking around with blinders and he himself denied the Armenian genocide for most of his life, is that not walking around with blinders on? And beyond walking around with blinders, Tracy at least has the integrity of information on his side of saying, yeah, I don't see the data. I don't see what you're getting at. There was mounds of data that he's walking around with blinders on. And then to name your show after an organization that committed a genocide is amazing. It's amazing. It's consistent. I don't believe that there was an Armenian genocide. So yeah, the group that they're saying did the genocide, if I don't believe that there's no genocide, then yeah, that group is fucking awesome. I'm going to call my show the Young Turks. And just to put it in perspective. Alright, so this is ArmenianGenocide.org. But I can give you a list of articles on this. This is just one that I chose, just because it's pretty straightforward in the reading of it. The Young Turks were perpetrators of the Armenian genocide. The Young Turk movement emerged in reaction to the absolutist rule of Sultan Abdul Hamid. With the 1878 suspension of the Ottoman constitution, reform-minded Ottomans resorted to organizing overseas and underground. The backbone of the movement was formed by young military officers who were especially disturbed by the continuing decline of the Ottoman power and attributed the crisis to an absence of environment for change and progress. Working secretly in unconnected clusters under the watchful eye of Hamidian secret police, the Young Turks succeeded in overturning the rule of the autocratic Sultan when the Ottoman armies in Europe. Turkey openly supported the movement of Abdul Hamid by a panoply of reformist Turkish, the text is really tiny, Turkish parties, as well as Armenian political and revolutionary organizations. The Young Turks further public support when the intervention was required to suppress the 1909 counter-revolution stage. Now, the important part is, to consolidate Turkish rule in the remaining territories of the Ottoman Empire and to expand the state into so-called Turian lands in the east, most of Iran and Russia, the CUP devised a secret program of extermination of Armenian population. From the viewpoint of the leftist ideology and its new and ambitious foreign policy, the Armenians represented a completely vulnerable and population straddling an area of major strategic value for its sympathetic to Russia. Now, going to the History Channel, in 1915, leaders of the Turkish government set in motion a plan to expel and massacre Armenians living in the Ottoman Empire. The reports vary. Most sources agree that there were about 2 million Armenians killed in the massacre. By the 1920s, when the massacre and the deportations finally ended, some 1.5 million Turkish Armenians were dead, with many more forcibly removed from the country. Today, most historians call this event a genocide, premeditated and systematic campaign to exterminate an entire people. It's one thing to say, I have reservations, just from your cultural standpoint. But when the information is somewhat overwhelming that it took place, and you're still walking around saying, yeah, this Armenian genocide didn't take place, and to up the ante by naming your organization after the organization that committed the Armenian genocide, because in your mind, the genocide didn't take place. So there's no reason, or there's no issue with calling myself the Young Turks. That's amazing. That's amazing. That's like me saying, yeah, I'm going to have this organization, this progressive organization. I'm going to call it Sons of the Confederacy. Sons of the Confederacy. Or better yet, I'm going to call it Andrew Jackson, the massacre of Native Americans. I mean, it's one thing after the other. You think of all these groups that committed all these acts, those horrendous, monstrous acts in human history. The name isn't necessarily held up with esteem. In this case, the Young Turks decided, yeah, we're going to name ourselves after a group that did a massacre. That's amazing. That's amazing. And then to turn around and say Michael Tracy is the one that's walking around with blinders on. Doesn't look like it to me. Doesn't look like it to me. What I would need from you is A, your evidence. I need your smoking gun evidence. You said it's 100% slam dunk. I need your smoking gun evidence. That's the first part. B, I need to understand why Democrats can interact with Russia, but Trump is not allowed to interact with Russia. I don't quite get that. C, I need you to show proof that the reason why Trump got rid of Comey was because of the investigation. Trump got rid of Comey because he didn't feel like he could trust Comey. Now, you could say the investigation might have had something to do with that. But that's a different thing than saying he's getting rid of Comey to end the investigation. I need a little bit more evidence that may or may not be true, but I don't know how you would know if that's true. I guess that's what I'm getting at. All these things that you're talking about, financial dealings with Russia, yes, okay, he's going to have financial dealings, he's a businessman. But none of these things touch the heart of the issue that we're talking about. Who passed the information to WikiLeaks? Was the DNC actually hacked by some kind of aspect of the Russian government? Did the Russian government have any influence in the election itself? I make the case that all those things are no. All those things are no. Now, all governments intrude into other governments' information. But they're going beyond that, making this point that they had something to actually do with turning the tide of the election. I'm saying if you're going to make that case, I need some evidence. And you're getting on here bashing the one guy who's actually looking for evidence, who actually looks at data. You're bashing that guy. You're undermining him. And not just undermining him. The guy's a reporter. He's supposed to find facts and data and information. And you're saying that this guy, the guy who's supposed to find facts and information, is walking around with blinders on. I don't think Tracey is the one with blinders. I honestly don't. I think Uygur is the one with blinders on. It's amazing that TYT is towing this line. It really is. It's amazing. They're essentially towing the Democratic line about this whole Russian hacking thing and everything else. Now, I've acknowledged that progressives do have somewhat of a chip on their shoulder in regards to looking at this. But at the same token, I've yet to see the evidence that gives this level of, yes, it's a slam dunk. I know it's a slam dunk. Trump and Russia has something to do with it. He's going to be impeached. They're going to drag him out of handcuffs. Trump is going to have the perp walk. That's essentially what they're having this conversation about, the guy being impeached. I don't see any evidence on the table dealing with him being impeached. Again, I hear assertions. That's all I'm getting at. I hear a lot of assertions. I am missing the piece of data that says, here's the smoking gun piece of data that says Russia and Trump colluded in the election. Fair enough. I don't exclude that because I've always said before, it's possible that it's the case. But you haven't shown that. That's all I'm saying. You haven't shown that. You're being pretty adamant that you have some kind of cosmic inner knowledge that Trump is going to get impeached for something and that Trump and Russia had some level of collusion. Nobody else has that inner knowledge. You guys, you four, were just sitting there talking to yourselves, and you guys, for the most part, just agreed with the narrative of the Democratic Party. So good job. The Young Turks, the progressive news network, a functionary of the Democratic Party. That's awesome. That's awesome. Keep up the good work, Cenk Uygur. Alright guys, if you enjoyed the content, feel free to share, like, subscribe, and you can always support the work through Patreon.